ogenda ku ssomero walinda UPE
nalinda UPE my first time to step foot in class it was in 1997
Guno ndi wasookera ddala kankitegere bulungi kitegeeza okugenda ku ssomero gwe weetwala
nze
ne weewandiisa mu ssomero
nemugamba njagala kuvaayo nzija embeera ewuwo nangamba are you sure nemugamba yes tubona gye wange onaakola ki nze nsobola okukuyamba okusoma nemugamba emirimu gyonna gy'onampa kati ne tutuula nangamba ojja kuba nga otwala embuzi ku ttale n'ente yalina ente awo nga 3 nga zakusiba kati nemugamba okay neyanza nangamba kati genda opaakinga ebibyo gye nga bamaze ennaku nga 2 ng'oyo anka amaze okunkuba emigo egy'okusoma mbu siwulira jjajja like simuwa kitiibwa aŋŋamba sisoma
ate gwe ogenda kusoma
nze ngenda okukola ki ngenda okusoma muvaako omwo nemugamba nsa njala tuwandiike leeta nga nsaba oli father nyamba mpeerere mu secondary kubanga wano master yaŋŋamba nti sente ziweddewo ayagala kuntwaleyo waabwe Kasanda kusuubula mwanyi
oli bwe yagala nti jala tukole emirimu ojja kutwalirangayo embuzi emirimu gyo wagikola
nagikola
mpaka lwe wamala
P7
ng'okola mirimu egyo let's change for this
na ninya that was my first time to come to Kampala 2004 nga ninya nga nzija nga ngenda ekisubi nga nkola interviews nga nziyita nga nyingira seminario
My role here is kukugula amaaso nga nkujja mu transition okuva mu byobufuzi ate nkuteeke mu bintu ebyongera value to society. Maseri nyaniriza omugenyi wange omupya is going to be here for quite some time. Obw'abantu anaaba asiimye ndowooza sijja kukimweyamira ajja kukyeyama naye kale right about now njagala okubanjulira omusajja ono mumulabe mwe mujajinge munaawulira byagamba ndowooza mwogere ndi ku Dr. Pontian Kavera, Doctor of Philosophy in Education nga specifically doctorate ye ekwata mu Comparative Education and Leadership. Ebyo byonna bigambo nze mbyogedde bwogezi naye simanyi nnyo kye bitegeeza. Ssebo nsanyusa okulaba ogamba otya Dr. Pontian?
Ndi bulungi nnyo ssebo Mr. Kankaka era nkwaniriza Makerere University. This is a citadel of intellectualism in the world actually because I moved in 2017 and I went to Mauritius and I met a mass of former Makerere University graduates, former students here from Makerere University doing tremendous things out there. It is actually then that I learned that Makerere still remains a stronghold of nurturing quality human resources across the world. So, nsanyuse nange olwaleero okubeerako wano ku TMO nga nkyaziddwa mukulu Kankaka neyanza so neyanza.
Sincerely, we are one of Uganda locally down here in this country of ours. Makerere is the highest level of the highest institution on the land, but locally some of us had thought it had lost credibility around the whole world. Sincerely, nsanyusa okulaba doctor, we are at TMO. Njagala abantu obabuulira amannya go. Let's start at the name.
Okay.
Erinnya lyo gwani?
Neyanza nnyo abatuwuliriza nze Dr. Ponsiano Kavera mu lulimi Oluganda, mu lulimi Oluzungu Ponsian Kavera nga nasomera wano Makerere degree yange esooka nengenda nensoma degree ey'okubiri e China n'ey'okusatu nga kati nakomyewo. As a former student, I was able to get a carro here where I do my research projects. Yeah, sure.
Njagala kutegeera. Wasoma mpulira ebigambo byasitegedde bulungi. Wali wane Makerere. N'osoma degree esooka. N'ogenda n'osoma ey'okubiri. N'osoma n'ey'okusatu. Doctor olina emyaka emeka?
Nazaalibwa ng'ennaku z'omwezi 14 omwezi ogw'omunaana omwaka 1989. Egyo giribeera ng'emyaka 31 gye nina egy'obukulu.
Kakati kantegeere ekigambo doctor, oli doctor wa bisolo, doctor wa I need to understand the title doctor. Let's start there. Lwaki bakuyita doctor?
Bampita doctor, waliwo ba doctors babika bingi nnyo. Waliwo ba doctors ababasawo abajjanjaba abantu
abo betumanya abo ennyo
bebasingiddwa okumanyibwa. N'abawo ne ba doctors ab'ebisolo babayita ba vet doctors. Ne wabeerawo ne ba doctors ab'ebitabo. Kati ogenda okufuuka doctor ow'ebitabo oba osomye degrees 3. Degrees 3 bo maze you are expected to have done your bachelor's degree, n'okola ne master's degree, n'okola ne PhD degree, ye degree eyokusatu. Naye ate ebiseera ebisinga abantu balowooza nti bw'omala PhD okusoma oba okumaze. Okusoma tekukoma nti ne ku ssaawa ya kakati nkyasobola okudda ne nkola postdoctorate oba ne nkola degrees ez'enjawulo oba other specialization.
Nyina kati otulese nyina mikwano gyange boolese. Nyina mikwano gyange Thaddeus abeera UK. Ne papa wange Thomas Byalugaba abeera mu Austria kati obalese. Let me understand. You're talking as Dr. Pontian.
Yes, sir.
Doctor wa bitabo.
Yes.
Si wa bisolo, si mukubi wa mpiso.
Exactly.
Okutuuka ku doctorate gy'otandikiddeko. Let's get to these young boys and the old men who don't know what this means. Okusoma n'ofuna doctorate ntandikira mu nursery. Ompe emitendera nkitegeere bulungi nnyo.
Kati okusoma okutuuka ku level eya doctorate oba PhD holder or PhD level, it is a very long but can be made a short process if you are really interested and your career objectives is to probably take on very ground-shaking research or being a knowledge contributor. Naye nga tosobola kugolokoka enkya n'ofuuka ni
doctor
w'ebitabo. Just like you cannot wake up tomorrow and you become a medical doctor or a vet doctor.
Of course.
You go through a process of education, a process of learning, a process of research, a process of interacting with different people that have gone through the same process or that became what you're actually pursuing to become way before you did.
Okay, let's start at nursery.
Nze okutandika okusoma kwange,
the chronological order of the books. Not my books or general to study to become a doctor. The studying to become a doctor.
Yes. Otandika n'osoma mu top class abamu era nabyo birimu enjawulo. Waliwo abasoma nga batandikidde mu nursery school, waliwo abasoma nga batandikidde mu kindergarten ne bagenda top nursery, then primary, then up to secondary universities. Now abalala batandikira mu P7 kati abantu abamu kati ngaffe tetwasoma nursery, tetwasoma top. Ebyo nabisanga busanzi nga ngenza okusoma mu seminari y'Ekisubi. Benasanga omuvubuka nga mamuze nasoma kindergarten, nasoma daycare. Actually it was my first time to hear of daycare and kindergarten when I was in Kisubi. Sebe binali sibikola ki naye nga nabyo bintu ebimu kubikola kusoma kw'omuntu okutuuka ku level yonna gy'abakola ki naddala level ya doctorate. Kati
bwe ntuuka ngambe kati ngaffe kye twamanyira nursery emyaka gyo tugeze 2 era tugiteeka ebbali naye primary gino gye gimanyiddwa standard omusanvu. Dr. Pontian wasoma omusanvu n'ogenda ku 4 senior 4 n'osoma 4 giri 10 n'emeka 11 n'osoma advanced level senior 6 egibeera 2 n'oyingira first degree nazo zaawuka mu myaka eyo yali yemeka emyaka.
Degree gye nasooka okusoma Makerere yali ya myaka 3 nengisoma no ku Bachelor of Arts in Education at School of Education and External Studies. Bwe nagimaliriza n'entambula n'enfuna omulimu eyo Emuwendo ku seminaari yo gye nakolera internship n'ensomesa Kkwo awo. Naye nga
In that case, it was school practice.
It was school practice, but after school practice, Father Rector proposed that I stay around and do some teaching and become a staff. And we even negotiated money, salary, and all that.
Some small remuneration.
I had a very good friend of mine. He's a medical doctor, Dr. Ian Shaka. Twabiranga naye wano mu Lumumba. Nemubuliramu nga bona nyumizaako mukwano gwo. Nemugamba kati maze internship wane mubende naye Father Rector abadde proposinga nti oba kisoboka mbadde musomesa mulungi nsobola okusigala nga staff.
Nampa omulimu.
Shaka nangamba bajja kukusasulanga sente mmeka. Nemugamba sente, you may not be able to disclose the money here. Nemugamba sente nangamba sente ezo okyali mwana muto. You barely 24 years. Okyalina ebintu bingi ebyokukola. Wandibadde obireka naye nga makati awo twali twateesanga njagala kusoma nfune masters ne Ph.D nga sinaweza myaka 35 nga twakyogerako naye as my best friend nga mugamba ku future prospects zange. Kati nangamba komawo ke Makerere tunyumye neninye taxi nenve mubende nenzija Makerere ne musanga wano mu Lumumba ne tunyumya ne mugamba this is what is on table. Nangamba no Ponsiano, you either pursue further studies or you try to look around for resources and do business. I looked at the sources where I can really...
So his argument was dependent on the salary of fathers or so many other factors?
There were so many other factors. He knew that I wasn't really in for education. He knew that I wasn't in for it, and doing something that you are not so passionate about. You never be an expert in something that you don't like. You don't really perform to the best of your ability.
Of course.
Yeah. So yali akimanyi nga ate alaba an experience that he had constructed over the years. Abasomesa, I think they weren't living
that an inspirational life.
An inspirational life. And he wanted me to be a better person. But then I told him that I think I can pursue priesthood. Twatula ne mugamba ndoza nandibadde nzire mu seminari yo nensoma obufaatha. So nangamba bwoba ogenze mu bufaatha esimu yange gideleting. Like he's a guy who is so open. He tells you his mind basically. So from there neninya taxi nenzira ye mubende. Nenjoga ni father omu bamuta Father Kachinda. He kick-started my academic journey. Nangamba nti oyagala kugenda mu bufaatha kati wandibadde ogenda either e Tanzania or n'ogenda e Rwanda. E Rwanda eyo nampe namba za father bamuta Father Bukenya wetaase. Father Bukenya yali asoma mu seminari ngava mu Kinda diocese. But suddenly nagende Rwanda nafuuka mu father Rwanda. So I went to have a talk with Father Bukenya over the possibilities of joining the seminary in the major seminary in Rwanda, and then I pursued priesthood. When I reached Rwanda, I met Father Bukenya, and he gave me different options in life. And he told me, get back to me, go and reflect upon whatever I've told you, and get back to me. Remember, Mr. Kankaka, all those things are happening in a very short period of time. I can say 3 to 4 months. That is when,
time when your brain is roaming around to make the right choices for your future.
Trying to think about the way forward, the next chapter after internship. Am I taking on education as a career and to go to class and teach students in secondary schools, or I can divert and take up other career opportunities. Then when I had a talk with Father Bukenya, he told me a lot, and I went home and reflected about whatever he had told me. While I was still thinking, in something like 2 weeks, a friend of mine with whom we had studied together here in Makerere, he told me that he's doing journalism. He's writing for Rwanda's English Daily, the New Times. And told me, you can come and we start writing as we are waiting for a job or something. I went there and I started writing. When I'd been there for something like 4 or 5 months, a certain very good friend of mine, Feli Chimenyi, gave me a press release to go and cover an article in the Chinese embassy. So I went and I met this Chinese lady. We talked. I saw they were sending off students who had gotten Chinese scholarships to go and study in China. So I went, covered the article. I went, sat down and wrote a very good article. And when it was published, the following day, the PR of the Chinese embassy in Rwanda gave me a call and said, Ponshan, thank you so much for the article. It is so beautiful, very detailed. And then I was like, oh, okay, you're welcome. But I also want to study because I saw you people sending off. What are the requirements for someone to go
on this scholarship?
That was happening something like 4 or 5 months after I had finished, even before I graduated. Even before I graduated. And then I told her, okay, now I really want to go for further studies. It is my dream. Are you interested in studying in China? I'm like, very much so. Given the opportunity, I will take it up. And then she told me, bring me your degree certificate and transcripts, and then I process your scholarship. I came
before graduation.
Yeah, before graduation. So that was towards January 2014. I came around here. We graduated, and then I got my transcripts and certificates. I gave them to Guidan, the PR. She's now back in China. She works with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of China. So I gave her my documents, and she processed my scholarship. In 2014, around June, I went for the master's degree. So I called my friend here, Dr. Shaka. He was still at medical school. And I told him, you know what, the chance has surfaced. Let me go to China and do a master and also proceed with a PhD, given the chance. So I went to China, to a university called Tsinghua. I did a master's degree, and I worked on a thesis that really emerged as one of the best theses. And actually, I was offered a PhD slot. But that slot was supposed to be in Chinese language, and I was like, hey, I cannot really handle, if I cannot even write a very good letter in Uganda without any mistake, and yet I was born and raised in central Uganda, will I really be able to write a thesis in Chinese language? And I said no. But I kept on pushing. I kept close. I returned back home in 2016 January, and I went back to the New Times, where I was working as a journalist, and continued with my business.
Your usual writing of articles?
Yeah, my usual writing of articles, and it is that I even had a chance to go to the University of Kigali and also lecture. But I kept close to the Chinese embassy. And in 2016, they called me again, because when I came back, I went and you know, one of the problems, Mr. Kankaka, that our students actually face, or school-going children anyway, we don't give a report. Someone is paying your school fees. You finish, a term ends. You don't really go back to show your dad that this is a report, this is how I've performed, to also empower him to continue, to motivate him,
of
to
course.
Continue supporting
Sometimes
you.
It is persuading him.
Exactly. So for me, when I finished my master's, I went, took my work to the Chinese embassy, and I told them that thank you so much for the support, for the opportunity you offered to me. I'm done with the master's and I'm back. Like, would you want a PhD? I'm like, please, if an opportunity surfaces, I will take it over. So in that same year, they called me again, and they told me there are opportunities here. We want you to go send your documents to the Rwanda Education Board, and then for us, once those people accept your document, the rest is done. For us, we shall give you, you go back, because I went to a top-notch university in China, Tsinghua, so that alone also
I added some weight.
Yeah, some weight, and the way I performed, and so cutting the whole story short, they called me. I went did the interviews, went to the panel with other students that were also competing for those scholarship opportunities, and I was able to win. And I went back for a PhD. And I started my PhD. I had a few months there of studying Chinese, and then 2017, I started off knowing that I'm supposed to publish. You know, one of the challenges that people who go for PhDs face is that you tend to ignore the fact that the type of the degree you've gone for.
Exactly.
Some of them gone aware that you're supposed to write a thesis and you publish academic articles in high-ranking journals. Now, many of my friends, once they go there, they first relax, do the coursework, and they remember to publish when they're remaining with 1 year or 2 years. And yet, this is academics. You don't write it like a news article or something. You need to read, people have to give comment, and research is subjective.
Of course.
So no bambi. So me, I had that in mind, and I started off right away. That is why I've been able to finish quite early.
You see, Doctor, that was something for a given class of my viewers, and they have seen it. Then there is this other class. All of us watch at the same time. Njagala nkutwale eri mu kyalo gye wava. Kuba tuwulira PhDs, doctors, you guys are well off. They are people who have come from well-off families. Be bantu abadde n'obusobozi obusasulira abaana baabwe nga bayitawo buyisi. Sometimes it is alleged ne wabaawo n'engeri esasulirwa abaabwe basooke bakulembere. So kakati Dr. njagala kumanya. Omanyi mu Uganda okusoma abantu okusoma first of all wakyaliwo mentality enkadde nti kwabalondemu abeesobola. Ne wabeerawo ne mentality nti kulimuko n'okulembeza abamu baabo abali ku mwanjo. Ne mubeeramu n'ekirala ti mulimu abatalaba mugaso nsoma ki naye ate era education system oluusi n'ekyonoona nti bangi abafulumye abatalina kye bali. Of course kati omuntu factors ezo zonna tomanyeemu affectinga. Njagala nkutandikire wali Doctor. Ozaaliddwawa okusoma okutandikiddewa kuno kwe tuwogerako. Family if you don't mind, status ya family yo yali etyo kubanga ye doctor at 31. Manyi abamu bwatuuka n'asoma ateekawo profile nali bubi naye nga kituufu yali bulungi. So we need to compare. Tulabe oba n'alaba video eno omwana we yali kimutuusizaako kuba omwana alaba yali sobodde kituukako. Ozaaliddwawa era otandise kusomawa era status yo yali etya. Simanyi ndowooza tutandikiraawo.
Yeah, that is really because anything has its genesis. Now, nazalibwa ku kyalo kyetume e Namutamba. Naye then it was in Mubende district. Naye tetwalwayo nnyo nga tukyali baana bato nnyo. Ebiseera ebyo nga Museveni yakawamba abantu baali bamuvinga. So ne tuddayo ne tugenda ku kyalo kye bayita Enabale mu Busujju. Kati tukulemberwa Honorable Kalwanga David mu gombolola y'emaanyi mu Mubende district again. Then ne kati yafuuka Mityana district. So eyo gye nazaalibwa era gye nakulira. Sijagamba nti nava mu family nga bagagga nnyo oba nga baavu nnyo. Tebaali bagagga nnyo neera tebaali
abasembayo
this poverty level class. I've seen some countries classify poverty level. Tebaali mu bali abatalina kyakulya. Yeah, so mu family mwe nakulira nenfuna chance ebyokusoma tebyali bintu byabwe. Ebyokusoma tebyali bintu byabwe era
Mubende eyo bantu twawulira baaberanga mu kulunda kwokka. Era kuzo ne bwogendayo era nnyo tosanga nnyo bagenda ku ssomero osanga batwala nte zaabwe.
Exactly. Kati nze nakula kubanga natandika okusoma my first time to step foot in class. It was in 1997. Guno gwa wasookera ddala okulinnya ekigere mu class nga balese UPE nga UPE etandise
sokolike ogenda ku ssomero walinda UPE
nalinda UPE naye I don't really think that waliwo yandisomye nga si UPE mu family yange nakola ki
ekyabeererawo mu kaseera teyali badde singa teyali UPE tewali somye
sandisomye era ne UPE olaba wadde bagituwa nengira okusoma force ng'olina okutoloka n'ogenda n'osoma nga byampaka nzijukira mu nakubwako emiggo gyalinga 40 mu I don't really remember nenga zaaliya kubanga uncle wange omu era nako mulaba ku olwo sidangamu mulaba. I don't know whether he still exists or not. Batugamba nti temugenda kusoma nti mubeere waka katika nebuza
bakiraba mu value
nga tebakiraba mu value nga nebuza abalala bagenda okusoma ffe lwaki batukola ki batugaana okusoma kati nentoloka nengenda bwe nagenda nentoloka that was 1998 twalinga tusoma nenga tuvaamu ne musoma ne muvaamu nga like okuva mu family nga they don't appreciate what education is and what really education can bring on table. Tebakikulembeza
nti omwana alina okusoma
nga nsomera mu ssomero ewaffe Emityana balita St. Charles Lwanga Kande Primary School nasomeramu emyaka 7 nga era nabeerako ne head boy waayo
kitegere bulungi kitegeeza okugenda ku ssomero gwe weetwala
nze
ne weewandiisa mu ssomero
wabeerawo omusajja bambi bamuyitanga Darren Kakongoliro M.i.S.O rest in peace yafudde nabaddeko eyo mu kyalo nga ngenze mu pate ne bangamba yafa I think 2 years ago badde sibimanyi oyo musajja yangamba jangu wewandiise ekiseera ekyo UPE ngezinga bawandiisa abaana
I remember it was supposed to be 4 people from the same family bana basome
kati nze nenga newandiisa ne bangamba jenva ebiseera ebyo nali sikyabeera nga mbeera ne jjajja wange azaala mama wange nga sibeera na family so nembeera waawo obutuufu saalwawo nnyo kubanga ebyokusoma baali tebagala nsome nengina nempitiramu omusomesa wange M.i.S.O rest in peace Mr. Olakira Dominic era weyo ne Kasanda yansomesanga mathematics mu primary nemugamba master njagala kusoma naye nga nkuba emiggo lwaki oyosa namugamba baby nemunyonyola
era generally omuntu abiri wa jjajja wo 98 ekyokusoma tekitandikirwako the fact that wali toli eri bali kubiriza ngo oli eno wa jjajja ekyokusoma walina kukola mu birala
kati nemuyitiramu nemugamba ebizibu byange byendi mu kuyitamu nemugamba maaso nkuba emigolo kwosa ngamba oli musajja mugezi nga nze akulembera by the way oli musajja mugezi naye oyo sawa osoma emirundi ebiri mu wiiki yonna nemugamba njagala kuvaayo nzija embeerewo nangamba are you sure nemugamba yes tubona gye wangu nakola ki nze nsobola okuyamba okusoma nemugamba emirimu gyonna mpa kati ne tutuula nangamba ojja kuba nga otwala embuzi ku ttale n'ente yalina ente awo nga 3 nga zakusiba kati nemugamba okay neyanza nangamba kati genda opakinga ebibyo gye nenzirayo waka olunga bamaze ennaku nga 2 ng'oyo anka amaze okunkuba emiggo egyokusoma mbu siwulira jjajja simuwa kitiibwa aŋŋamba sisoma
ate gwe ogenda kusoma
nze ngenda okukola ki ngenda okusoma nengenda bwentyo nitandika okubeera ne Mr. Olakira Dominic netubeera ffenna nensoma bulungi nnyo nemala ekyomusanvu awo nengenda waliwo omusosolodoti omu erinnya lye sijja lyogera guardian wange kati yalinga ayitawo ng'ajja nga wewaabwe ku kyalo ng'ajja okusoma zimmisa bw'aba ayiseko ewaabwe okubakyalirako nentula ne master wange bamuta Master Serufu nga maze P7 mu 2003 muvaako omwo nemugamba master njala tuwandiike leeta nga nsaba oli father nyamba mpeerere mu secondary kubanga wano master yaŋŋamba nti sente ziweddewo ayagala kuntwala eyo waabwe Kasanda kusuubula mwanyi. Ne kati nga bwe ndaba ndi mutini nnyo sobola na kusindika double ya mwanyi irimu okwetika kujjako okwanika ate naye tusobola disitula dijjayo naba sijja bisobola. So basically sharing this story is to empower a young boy out there and young girl that could be probably going through the same life.
Kati kankubuuze oli bwe yagamba nti jja tukola emirimu ojja kutwalirangayo embuzi emirimu gyo wagikola?
Nagikola
mpaka lwamala
P7
okola mirimu egyo in exchange for this
nga ngende waka basically nga I got integrated into the family nga ndi mwana wa waka
bali bayisi banyivu nnyo
ewaka
bakireka
omanyi waliwo okula n'osonyiwa abantu ebintu ebimu n'obikola ki n'obireka. It wasn't really nasalawo ne ngamba okay, these are my parents, this is my family.
That's how it was.
That is how it was. As long as they are happy and I'm happy and I'm pursuing my dream, that's the most important thing.
Kati olwomuwandiikidde father ogende mu secondary
tutulanga ngolu maze okweestablishinga nti no opportunity ate nga nze dream yange eri yakumala senior 4 ngende ebusuubizi ku primary teachers college nsoma obusomesa bwa primary nga era nga ne master tubeereyo mu ttale nga tugeza okusimbuliza ente nga tunyumyako nangamba kati soma nnyo omale nkutwale mu secondary wane ekiggwa waliwo essomero ly'okukyalo omale senior 4 bonamala senior 4 ogende ebusuubizi osome obusomesa bwa primary by then twaberanga baana batuninga omusomesa wa primary wa maanyi nnyo
ayina ekitiibwa
ng'olaba bavuga buno piki bubadia waliwo ebiseera ebyo nga we really admired them so much and
because the respect a kid attaches to a senior oba nayo mu mutima mu musaayi
so kati what I think I don't really know what transpired ebintu byakutosobola bitegeera nantuuza nangamba tokyasobodde fuba nnyo simanyi nengenda kutwala ekasanda tulime tusuubule naye senior oyinza obutagigendamu kubanga mukyala wange agenze kusoma masters nange ndi mu kusoma ate n'abaana bali mu kkula awo natula n'empita omusomesa wange oyo yansomesanga science bamuyita self M.I.S.O nitwale muganja kuwandikira Father Henry nempandikirako ne diocese y'Ekiyinda ngamba saba jasi buyambi just
father amuwandikira osinzira ku kiwali omuwulidde nti ayina bayambi
nasalawo obusazi kubanga nali mumanyi
ngajja okusaba emmisa
ngajja okusaba emmisa nga nsoma amasomo mu church. I love the Catholic Church so much so nga ngenda nsoma misa brother nga nsoma amasomo nga mpeereza kati nga negombo mu father nange nga mpulira mbikola ki nze nganze
omulabo mu life nungi
nga life nungi nnyo nga mbyagala so nempandikira nenjogera ne M.I.S.O oyo netutuuka ne tuwandiika nanyambako omanyi oluzungu lw'omukyalo ng'ate ntya father asomesa Kisubi seminary nga I need to really convince him so Mr. Self nanyamba nempita mukulu w'oyo father naye gyali ewaka. I really appreciate him so much. Now father balua. Guess what? Father reads the letter. Ngakiriza nga mwe mwana mundetele mulabeko. So ngangina nsinkana father, that was 2013 late 13 ewaka nga mulaba nga tuogera nga ngamba prepare ogende Ekisubi okole interview nga ninya. That was my first time to come to Kampala 2004 nga ninya nga nzija nga ngende Ekisubi nga nkola interviews nga nzita nga nyingira seminari yo Ekisubi 2 olwo nga ntandika okusoma nga Mukama atandika okunkola bwati okunyamba to go through education.
So you went through Kisubi?
Through Kisubi seminary. Kati we namala senior 4 kavubuko oyo tabera mwangu nnyo fusi excited nengamba sidayo Kisubi. Kati father nagamba yakakudda wasewo namugamba njala kunoonya essomero eddala nagamba linoonye so nenfuna essomero Mitiana Senior Secondary School nenkoleyo A-level bwe nagimala nenyingire Makerere ku Faculty of Education.
Olwo oyingidde Makerere on whose school fees?
Him.
The father?
Yeah, father. Reverend Father Henry. By that time naye yali agenza okusoma nga alimukola Ph.D. Nena ngamba genda nja kuyambanga n'akasente akatono kenabanga nfunye ka allowance kange nga ka student. Era nenzija wano Makerere saamuswaza sisobola kuswaza musajja oyo kubanga antaddemu nnyo obwesige okundabirira ne kusawa ya kakati tambuuzanga taatawo yaani oba mama wo yaani ne kusawa ya kakati.
That's so fun about reverends.
I'm telling you, I finished my Ph.D. Nankolera pate nungi ewaka naye tambuuzangako kitaawo yaani maama wo yaani ye afa ku bulamu bwange.
Why did you take the initiative to tell him?
Simugamba byatambuuziza kati lwaki someone is not interested, so as long as you are getting whatever you want,
yes,
it is okay. Naye nga is really a key pillar in my life. So bwe ntyo ne maliriza Makerere nentandika jjana ya masters and PhD nga bwe nagamba naye nali wano bwe sa ekintu kye nakyagala nnyo ekyobufaatha era nina dream nti singa Omukama banga mpadde omukyala ngali alina mindset ng'eyange mu byeddiini nandyagadde omwana waffe nasoma obuseminaaliyo at least
Doctor tonafuna mukyala
mbadde
mwagala bwagazi ebitabo byamukulemesa
ebitabo mbadde nnyo mu bitabo nga ndi very busy. Omanyi abantu tumanyi weaknesses zaffe waliwo omuntu omu nga nti singa mba nga ndi mu kusoma nonkubira essimu nongamba omwana mulwadde nyinza okulinnya ennyonyi because I did grow up with family, but I would really
attach a lot of importance
to nurturing,
of course,
to parenting. So and mutual parenting. To mama waleleko naawe okoleki
naawe ozannyemu n'abaana nkitegeera
nga ndaba singa ngenda okusoma ebitabo bino n'omukazi nga mulese emabega it is going to compromise my concentration academically.
Okay, so njagala okubuuza Doctor, so that journey there, here, whatever you went through was a cost of what you are right now.
Yeah, sure.
Katonda yakuyamba, you appreciated it and made the positive way, took the positive way. Njagala kukutunuliza ekintu kino abantu abayise mu such a journey ne bafuna doctorates kyewanyinyodde obulungi tutuuka ekiseera nga situbalaba. You see, this is a country, Uganda, that has doctors. Nenga fenga public eno, we don't see the impact of your education. Mwaba appreciating until we've came from nowhere to wherever you are. Maybe some of them are so proud that they made it that they can't translate this to whatever. Kati kiki ngendako. Njagala kugenda mu education waliwo twabanga tusoma kubuuza onaabeera ki. You speak randomly. For you have made these choices. Why did you choose philosophy in education? Ng'ofunye capacity eronda ekintu ekirala kyonna. How did this come as your choice? Wachoosing otyo okukola ekyo kye walikoze. Circumstances oba it was your will to choose your line of education?
Yeah.
Civil.
So the degree I went for was philosophy of education. But it is that thing in bracket, comparative education and leadership. So I was trying to compare education in different countries. Nti Makerere University oba Uganda ekozesa model of teaching and learning ki curriculum zaabwe zoogera ku biki ese bagraduates baabwe bamala okumaliriza okusoma what is their value to society, what do they do, what's the content, the quality of their content. Then nengenda Tanzania nengenda nintegra education system kati nalabye nabadde eno paper jeni mukolako research eya epistemological shifts in the teaching modes for basic education during COVID. Nalabye nga Kenya eina Education Act ya 2012 kati Education Act it is resonating well with the mandates of teaching and learning during COVID. Okitegeera so nga ebintu ebyo bina comparative education kyekola ki kyetegera nti your value you read and see the existing gaps within your education system. Nti kati bwe nsoma education system ya China, nensoma experiential learning engeri gye babikola nendaba nti internship yaffe gye tulimu ey'emyezi ebiri nga education students at faculty of education. What are the existing gaps? In those 2 months, can you really manifest what you have learned in the process of teaching and learning for the last 3 years? What if we take experiential learning at a semester basis? Nti buli semester gwako omwana ngebe bikikola
enough
experience that in this exactly that in these 3 years or 4 years, depending on the nation, how the country actually the years you take, because the years you take during a degree varies according to countries. Maybe in Tanzania it's 4 years for education, 7 years for doctors. Now each semester nti omwana agendenga ku school practice wali attached oba ku hospital wali attached atandika kola ki
mu industry
whatever attachment atandika kuyiga ebintu bino. Naye nze nalabanga abaana nga ndi mukola internship ng'omwana ajja bana ba second year mu butuufu ng'akankana bw'ati nalaba supervisor avudde ku university okujja mu supervisinga
yetegekera kiro kiramba.
Exactly. Niyo mwana abadde akikola kati in China abana basoma education abana bakola civil engineering almost bwagenda ku university wakawa almost because each and every semester they are attached to different institutions, to different industries. By the time a kid finishes the first degree or his degree or her degree already afunye amagezi agakola n'ekiche.
His knowledge is applicable.
Exactly, his knowledge
can be visible to us who did not go to attend such a class.
Exactly. So of course there are other factors that can impede that from actually happening in our context here. Maybe resources, maybe what. But if our key policy henchmen can think about that, really would be very important. So my PhD basically, I looked so much. I went back to my village. I went back to my village. I went back to Ponsiano Kabera. The challenges I went through to go to school, to convince my parents that education is important.
Ikatutandikira.
Okay.
Mu PhD yo wasalawo n'ogamba nze Ponsiano Kabera yaveeri kanzireyo. Be waddamu tebaasoma wali ogenze kukolayo ki?
Yes. Thank you so much. That is really, it taps into exactly what I wanted to do for my PhD research. You know, everyone can do a thesis. Buli muntu asobola okukola thesis. Era kyovola batubuuza that what is your novelty? Kiki kyokoze gwe nga scholar? Kiki kyokoze ekitulaga that you are a doctor? Now, for me, I observe there is one thing that Ugandans have not really yet fully appreciated, especially regarding the NRM government. These people decentralized education. They extended education services. Well, let us put aside quality. Naye baleta education services to communities, near to the people. Waliwo professor, abakati professor Nkata. Is my hobby. Yasomera mu ssomero erimu nasomera mu olunaku olumu mu 99 twalinawo speaking ne bamu invitinga. Nagamba yatambulanga mile okuva Emanyi okutuuka Ekande nga kiringa okuva nga wano okugenda Ekyengera. Nenga atambuza biki?
Kuva Makerere mpaka Kyengera.
Ekyengera wayinza n'okubanga kumpi.
Nsangi
nga atambuza bigera kugenda kola ki? Ng'enkuba etonya n'akwata oluki?
Olulagala.
That is no more today. Education, amasomero bagazimba kumpi, like even private institutions.
Amasomero tuganoonya kusinziira wa wendi. Mu region mwendi bwe noonya essomero.
Kati jembere eno kanisi kange. Bagadde bino ebyaki. Omuntu n'ayimuka n'agamba nze abaana bajja kugira nga nsomese. Ajje waka nakola ki?
Nasomesa abali.
Nasomesa. So they have made systems very easy to and very easy.
So that's what you call decentralization.
Decentralizing education. Ne bagikiriza waki? Bagikiriza wansi. Kati bwe bamala okukola ekintu ekyo ne kiwa opportunity ku bantu abamu ngaffe okusobola ku accessing education. Naye era n'olaba nti waliwo ekintu ekimu kye bakoze ekikyagaanye kwe kukonvinsinga jjajja wange atalinnyako mu ssomero to appreciate the beauty of education.
Okumubuulira nakkiriza nti kati okusoma kwa makulu nnyo eri obulamu bw'omuntu mu nsi eyakyuse.
Nga kyenjagala nga kyendi mu kulaba nti singa omuntu abantu okusobola when you look at sustainable development goals, education is a key dimension. Quality education is a key dimension. Now, people measure quality education in terms of people's output. Nti student oli
afunye first grade ebitwagali
nti student ya graduate nze Makerere University
yayambadde gawuni nane ku kyo graduating mukyalo tumanyi yayambadde gawuni
exactly nti omwana yakoze kila EV. Now, of course, that is a sub compartment of quality education. Nane participation okugenda nti okwenyigiramu n'ogenda mu ssomero nayo it is a key dimension of quality education. Kati we nagenda mu kyalo ewaffe ndaba nga abaana abamu abaali abagezi n'okunsinga ba dropping out at a very nascent age. Not dropping out. Nenkola personal observation and analysis and probably looking at there could be underlying reasons for their dropout. Ndaba nga ebiseera ebisinga abazadde baffe they are not well empowered. Nengamba singa tutwala education ne tu having a community education mobilizers ne tu leading a household education awareness nti education etandikire mu maki mu maka tujje wokankaka tukukakase nti okutwala omwana ku ssomero kintu kyamaanyi nnyo.
Nze kennyini appreciating
that is when you are able to support your child through education. Kati zinagambye ewaffe tetwali baavu nnyo. We could afford a UPE school fees, right? But because they didn't appreciate what education is, they didn't really support me through it. Never navao paka omwana yakoze eki
yatuwewagudde
ne kati kweyo community kireka kulika abaana nga basatu abasobola okusoma ne bamalako batuka ku senior 6 or senior 4. I'm being real. It's a small community. Wachebe ekintu ekyo ne era bw'obalaba abo abaana families zaabwe they are land. They are literate basically.
Bali bakimanyi the importance of education.
Kati modeno nga eyagala ku community household education awareness. Today tuzimbe ebyenjigiriza nga bikoze eki nga tudiringa ne chairpersons abo ku kyalo. This is how the model looks like. Ngodiringa nge connecting bottom up.
Ph.D wa developing a model esobola okuleetera abana bannakyalo abata appreciatinze kusoma okusoma bakutandikirawo ku regioni locally nti okimanyi kanga kanti waliwo abazadde abamu abaweereza abaana babe ku masomero just for the sake. No, government tetukwata.
Exactly.
Waliwo government ejja tusiba nga tamuweereza lwakuba ayagala asomere lwakuba nti ab'amateeka bwe banaamulaba waliwo repercussions.
Exactly. Naweereza omwana nti ne complaining nti batuwa UPE ni mutubba olwokuba musabye 15 ez'obuugi oba
ez'amazimba.
Kati nogenda ne weetegereza nti omuzadde oyo ta supporting mwana we not because okusoma kubi takitegeera. Abamu ne bameasuringa ne ba justifying their failure to support their children in education nti ne kankaka yasoma talina degree. Rather yasoma nafuna degree naye talina mulimo mu degree bye yasoma. Those are some of the things that we need to re-empower our populace down there. Nti omuzadde ku nyumba in a particular house agende ayogere ne chairman LC1. Ka chairman LC1 aberenga naye ali well empowered on education. Tubere ne community education mobilizers. Bano ba community very responsible okufinding out nti Ponsiano Kabera ayina abaana bameka. Nti ayina abaana 7. Ku baana 7 bameka bagenda ku ssomero. Nti ku baana 7 batano basobola ogenda ku ssomero. Bali ababiri lwaki? Nti akasente kamusukako. That is when scholars and researchers are able to inform the mainstream policy makers at the central government level. Okiraba ne bagamba nti banange abaana abamu tebakyasoma drop out eri waggulu oba participation eri egetinzelo olwokuba nti abantu baki
tebamanyi.
No, nti baavu. That's where you are able to inform. That's the relevance of research.
Nti ku kyalo kuli ogundi Ponsiano bwana identifying nti kanka kalina abaana 5 else wano ajja kumuga nti Kangaka ekimuganda okutwala abaana ku ssomero bwavu talina ssente olaba naye tali yakyamisana okutegedde
kati nga gavumenti yo nekola ki
nerowooza
eyambye etya
community
exactly kati Zimbabwe bakolako survey eyo nga balaba abaana Zimbabwe much as they have been going through an economic crisis. I don't want to use politics because I don't like politics. So
my head thinks that part.
So they have been going through an economic crisis. Naye bachizuula nti bambi abaana bamba missing out on participating in higher education like institution. Ne bateekawo fund ng'eyamba abaana abanaku kuva mu villages ezo. Kati bw'obanga tokkiridde wansi kumanya what is happening down there, you may not be able to establish that fact.
Bw'obanga tugenze mu community eri kutegeera nti kyekiri mu bantu bali osobola kukola policy ate bayamba.
Exactly. Kati nze I believe that quality education should begin with the participation. Tinze natuka ne P7 nga Oluzungu sikola ki sirumanyi naye alongo the way nayiga. Kati bonagamba nti olwokuba aliwo omwana yava ku homes darling where should be the people to participate in education. But tunulira abaana abo ne bazadde baabwe abasinga baba bakola ki baba bali enlightened ng'ebintu bikola ki enlightened ng'ebintu bikola ki babimanyi. So nze nga kyendaba nti let us have a non-discriminative education participation policy. The best way, of course, it could be happening unconsciously. Nga policy makers tebakitegeera. Next nga tugenda mu kyalo eyo ne to establishing educational committees in our different communities. Ne zikolegana ne district education officer. Kati bano okusanga an educationist who has turned a politician, he will tell you that we have education officers. But now the key question, how are these people operating? Have you had assessed their operations? I've never seen an education officer in my community. Atenga navayo 20 nze newe nali Makerere nga nzira mu kyalo 2013 when navirayo. So I've never seen it.
Is it 2013 2004 2003?
Yeah, najjanga nesoma nenzirayo mu holidays newe nali Makerere nadangayo. So sirabanga ku DEO akoze ki sirabanga na ku muntu wabyanjigiriza supervisor aze ku kyalo waffe ninga usanga abana batandise bagenze mu matatu batandise engaging in other illicit practices. So I think this model will be able to inform our parents. It will also be able to remind district education officers the role of community leadership, to establish community education committees, to establish sub-county education committees that are particularly responsible for empowerment or empowering the ordinary populace.
Doctor, I can't imagine someone who came to Makerere, where some of us, after making it to Makerere, we never wanted to return to the village. Someone makes it out of Makerere, goes to China for more education, sees how the Chinese country is endowed with a lot of people and so many happenings, and then you make a choice to return to the village. Why do you choose to go to the village alongside all the excitement that comes along studying in towns and so town excitement? Lwaki era olondawo ogamba kintu kyanjawulo mukko ky'omuntu yasoma doctorate n'asalawo akola emmodo eyamba omukyalo. Why do you choose those people?
Yeah, kati eno modo eyinza okuba nga teyamba na bamukyalo bokka, waliwo ne mu Kampala muno abantu abafailing okusupporting abaana baabwe in education.
Of course bangi,
not because they are not educated, not because they are poor, but because they don't really appreciate what education brings to them. They nabo eno modo ebakola ki ebazingiramu. So it's not about the village, but I'm talking about the village because that is where these cases are more evident. It's where they are very, very much evident, and people need to be empowered to support their children through education. Let me tell you, Kankaka, to study up to a Ph.D, it has nothing to do with brains. No. Tebakulimbanga.
Okusoma PhD senyoma bwenyomi nti amagezi waize nyina matono.
Kankaka ogende sawa eno n'ogisoma n'okyalinginga n'omusomesa we yakusomesa. Okusoma PhD oba okusoma kwonna in totality, it's about commitment. Kwewaayo mpulira ekintu n'okyagala n'okikola. Kyobola abantu abamu abeera nga tamanyi mathematics oba nga tamanyi particular subject, naye n'agisulamu ogenda okulaba agifunyemu C. Ochiraba ekintu ekyo. So it's about commitment. It also conquers with what I'm talking about. Nti okuweerera omwana tolina kubeera mugagga. Okuweerera omwana olina kukyagala nti education is important. N'okikkiriza kanga ogenda ne kukuba n'olima osobola okukola ki okutwala omwana wo ku ssomero. Kati those are some of the things that abazadde baffe mu byalo bye batakola ki. Nze waliwo omuntu omu eyampa nnyo ekyokuyiga bamuyita yafa oba Professor Kajubi Musaazi yakola education ordinance of 1992. Tinze ekintu kyendi mu kulwanako njagala nkole erinnya lyange not as the best politician, not as the best leader in whatever sense, because leadership is a very broad thing. But I want to make my name as an educational influencer.
And who is an educational influencer?
Is a person that that advocates for educational change, education improvement, quality education, inclusive education, attainment or participation. A person that will do any type of research to make sure that he comes up with something that can change the fate of our education. That is what I want to be remembered for my role in contributing to quality education or meaningful education than being remembered as a person that actually became a good politician. Yeah, the good politician who abused it so and so. No, that's not the world that I want to pursue. I am pursuing a life of contributing to society towards empowerment of the people, participating in education, also contributing to the mainstream education policies. Yeah, sure.
Let me talk about comparative education and leadership. Let me specifically talk about that. There are so many branches in education that someone would opt to have in their degrees or in their line of courses to choose. Why do you choose comparative education and leadership? And generally, what is it in education?
The Baganda have a saying, atanatambula tambula.
Yatenda
nyina okufumba. Okitegeera. Oyinza okubeera wanolowooza nti you have the best education system. Naye ng'ate waliwo ensi ezina better education system.
Okireese bulungi. Oba tonawulirako ku birala olw'okuba oli stuck here. You may think this is the best you can ever get.
Exactly. I would actually think one of the best subjects one should do at a PhD, especially from the educational point of view, would be educational psychology, sociology of education, and comparative education. Because you are able to appreciate the gaps that you have in your education system, able to borrow, then modify a little bit, and contribute to what is existing home and improve it. Now we have the 21st century needed skills. Abana zebakola ki? Bali mu kusoma sustainable development goals na Zoyogerako, public speaking, what and what. Naye okimanyi that Denmark ne Finland mu curriculum yaabwe eya basic education omwana public speaking is a key subject. Public speaking. Omwana ayige confidence eyo okwaprochinga
ogera batya abantu. Ogera batya mu bantu.
Exactly. Omwana ayogera batya. Omwana developing atya content that can be consumed by people. Omwana ngoya agenda okutuka. That's why you find those kids, they are very, very, very confident. They even go on big shows, and they present.
And these days some people even create their own big shows.
Exactly. So now the key question from a comparative perspective, how do you bring that here?
Of course, Dr. Kabera Jiyava. Achireta atya.
Nchireta antya wane waka. Nenchi proposing a curriculum. Curriculum yafe. So that at a basic education level. So that your mwana very wansi. Nga aina confidence eyo. Aina public speaking skills. He has been, of course, self-discovery is a continuing process. But you help to discover this child at a tender age.
So chitegeza, Dr. Ponsia, wasoma, okutunulira education systems ez'ensi endala ne yaffe.
Exactly. Basically, I am an educationist.
leadership chikwataganira wa comparative education.
That is the administrative part of it. And education transcends a classroom environment. Ogenda nokola ki?
Ogenda okusoma.
Ogenda okusomesa.
Kugamba education yesinga classroom eyo mwoli. Nga zinyo okusinga.
It goes beyond.
Efuluma mu kibiina.
Efuluma mu kibiina nti I can even go to the Minister of Education. I can be an administrator. You get this concept of leadership applies in different in everything. Na wano woli kuchina chima kweno camera. Era oli muku you are a leader now. You're telling me organize yourself like this, like this, like this. So that component of leadership in comparative education is management.
Of course.
Management of education institutions, management of students, management of anything to do with resources in education arena. So you can even go beyond education and be a leader in something else. So that's the management part of it. But comparatively, it's about appreciating other countries' education system and see what is lacking here or what is lacking in their country. And then you're also able to, that's why you find Professor Mahmoud, let me tell you, we have a professor here in Uganda that is celebrated across the world.
Mamdan.
Professor Mahmoud Mamdan. I remember when I was in 2016, when I was finishing my master's degree, Professor Mamdan came to China, to Tsinghua University. When he came, China Daily wrote about the coming of this academic messiah. When he came, there was a story before he came, and there was a story after he has gone back, after the conference.
That he was here. They said, I'm looking at it as he was here.
Exactly, he was here, and this is what he talked about in an academic conference that took place at Tsinghua University. Man, invited well-placed, positioned politicians all came.
What is so missing with us appreciating such people in this country?
That's what I was telling you on the phone. Most of the times, Kankaka, our media here in Africa or in Uganda or any other country, they don't pay attention to things that matter. They pay things that so and so have fought in the bar. So and so have done this and that. They can cover that thing for almost a full week.
Free.
But no one...
Free of charge.
Exactly. But no one will come out and talk about the COVID vaccine that the president recently launched. Was it launched or he came to... no one will come and cover that. It will pass on NBS, but someone will come and talk about something that is not...
The airtime that it is given is just meager, kind of very small.
Exactly, it is given very limited airtime.
And when people fight, it takes shape for the whole of the day.
Exactly, that so and so has nudes, has this and that. So and so nudes are out. You will see big coverages, all TV stations in the country inviting such a star. But when there is an academic conference here in Makerere University, you'll hardly hear newspapers writing about it.
Sometimes there should be a budget for the media to cover an academic conference.
An academic conference, you get. But you may find that those things are quite ignored, and in the long run, it has actually made academics also reluctant. That we shall have an academic conference here in MOOC, and we shall not put it on any media house.
We shall not give it any media coverage.
Yeah, we shall just organize ourselves as scholars. We send WhatsApp messages and pictures of the agenda. And we have it done. But now another challenge that we have is that, let me tell you, in many African countries, I've been fortunate to work with a white American professor. She has given me the opportunity to travel across the world, Africa and other countries. You observe that these people in these other countries, they attach too much value to scholars, to research. In a sense that each and every government parastatal or even non-government, they must have a research office, an office responsible for research and the validating of those research. Now in China, you find that the Minister of Education has hired a postdoctoral student, a postdoctoral student for 3 years to simply do research for the institution and inform the ministry about new mechanisms that we can use to heighten our education system. But do we have those ones here? I don't really know about that. Maybe I'm here to find out. Yeah, whether we have research, but I think we do. I think we do. But now, having it should not be a question. Do we take into considerations those research findings?
What's the energy there? How is it felt in the public?
Exactly.
What is its impact?
So our policymakers must begin to appreciate research. They don't have to look at me as a researcher for as an enemy because I'm trying to unearth the
challenges and weaknesses.
The few challenges and weaknesses that are existing. Most of those policymakers look at researchers as bad people. It's like living in a dictatorship. It's like living in a dictatorship where journalists or journalism are being persecuted because of the information they actually give to the public.
And very many times, whatever is coming out of the press is highly guided. It's guided press.
Exactly. So you observe that those are some of the missing things that we need to address to be able to live to that fundamental creed of having or nurturing competent human labor force, human resources that are going to move our country in the next generation.
Doctor, as we wind our first discussion on all the matters raised in this video, I would want us to look at the monetary value, the monetary explanation, the monetary implication of education versus doing the right thing. Because in Uganda, we go to school and sometimes we borrow money from the villagers who expect us to get jobs and return a favor, maybe financially return the money that they gave us to go for education. Sincerely, I want us to look at the basic, the explanation as you weigh the options a Ugandan has when it comes to attaining education versus attaining personal goals in the future after the education. The meaning of this education, sometimes financially, to this person, his family, to this the next time. Naturally, you hinted on now doing some research. Let's talk about that slightly, such that we shape the next discussion. What kind of research? Research
Yeah. Should I first answer the other question or I continue with it? So regarding the current research that I'm working on, I'm not working on this research alone. I'm working on it with my guardian, my M.i.S.O, the other reverend father. I told you
guys are still in touch.
Yeah, he's my parent. He's a parent to me, so I cannot really.
There's no way you detach from the parent.
You cannot detach yourself from the parent. But we are looking at the paradigm of an epistemological shift in the modes of teaching and learning for basic education during COVID. Looking at the case study of Uganda. COVID has presented very strenuous times. Ever since it struck the world, I think early 2020 or late 2019, when it hit the world from Wuhan province in China. The modes of teaching and learning have now changed. People are studying online. It has compromised social aspect that comes along with sitting with other people in class. I'm told they were offering televisions. Now, I'm looking at it. The problem is it is going to the inequality in education participation that this COVID-19 has actually brought. When we talk about participation goes hand in hand with teaching, right? Now, we are no longer coming to class to study. We are studying online. How many Ugandans?
A few of them.
A few of them. How many Ugandans can afford to have a television at home? How many Ugandans can afford a smartphone? No, let us outgrow Kampala and other city centers. Let us go to our remote areas. That's why I told you.
Extend back to where we came from.
Where we came from. That's why I told you nzira ye waffe mkyalo mtyana. Wakitegera ntandikireyo nga ninako kyenkola ki kyenkola. Ebintu bino bw'obi observinga. It's not practical. So I'm trying to inform in that paper that we are working on, epistemological shifts in the modes of teaching and learning, to inform the government that we need to be a little more critical. Otherwise, it is going to worsen the gap between the poor and the rich. Access to education is going to remain just a thing for those in financially well-placed families. Or, as a government, we should come up with working mechanisms that can enhance an inclusive form of teaching and learning. Some of the recommendations, some of the findings and the recommendations that I have in that paper so far, though I'm still working on it, that we can go back to our past forms of teaching and learning. You remember Ennyo, Nadamu Obote 1, Obote 1 and Obote 2 around there, and even in the early 80s. Waberangawo engeri abantu gye basomamu nga abamu basoma emisana, abalala ne basoma olw'eggulu. Okitegeera ekintu ekyo?
Something called thematic in the village where people end at Musanvu,
abalala ne bakola ki?
Ne bajja.
We can go back to that instead of closing down schools completely. Because trust me, abaana bali mu kulastinga. Abaana bali mu kulastinga. Abaana bali mu kuononeka down there. They are getting unwanted pregnancies, especially abaana bato myaka 18 because they are idle.
I hadn't thought about that. Personally, I hadn't thought about that. That sincerely we could get to half class in the morning, the rest of the class after lunch, and then school continues the usual way, with a social distance.
With a social distance.
I understand.
You get the point. So these are some of the recommendations we have in this paper. Trying to remind the government that online teaching and learning, it's really good. Japan, South Korea, China, I help my supervisor to teach, but I do it online. You get the point. So we can have that. It is really a very good option to take, especially during these unprecedented times. Naye ekibuuzibwa kiri nti tulina resources, tulina infrastructures, tulina abaana mu kyalo abazadde balina smartphones, omwana kw'anaasomera baleeta bino ebintu by'amawulire, daily monitor, ebintu simanyi mathematics osoma. Bantu bameka amawulire gatuuka? Amawulire gatuuka mu byalo bimeka? Okitegeera ekintu ekyo? Kati neffe ne tulowooza nti singa tuddamu kiri ekintu ekyokusoma half day, ne government negezaako okukola ku infrastructure ezo ne bazimba ku bizimbe ne beeyongerako, abaana badde mu masomero batandika okusoma nga basoma hawale. Abasoma ku makya mpaka afternoon basome, observing those SOPs, COVID regulations, social distance, and then abalala bajje in the afternoon bakoleki basome, so that learning continues to take place inclusively. Otherwise, if we continue with this online teaching, given our dynamics, social dynamics here, abana bambi bagenda ku missing out.
And definitely our country has not had the structures we can't pretend that there are structures that can avail the online resources to those people beyond Kampala.
Exactly.
Of course, this is a little bit challenging even to some in Kampala. How do we think about it for other people who are not in Kampala?
Exactly.
Let me hope for the best out of what you guys are doing. And kansubire nti nno bwemumala okukola research, the policymakers will take it for advice and put aside the politics when it comes to decision making. Do you have hopes that what you're doing will help this country?
Life is about optimism. Life is about optimism. I know it's pretty hard to find people that can resonate with your ideas, because it also goes hand in hand with one researcher who said that knowledge does not exist in a vacuum. Knowledge is shared. Knowledge is constructed through social discourses. So we shall continue to share our ideas, our knowledge. Abantu abanawulira nga kisobola okukola ki okuyamba. baja kujja tukolere wamu naye nga we shall relentlessly work for education because we have studied education and we understand that education is the citadel of quality human resource, meaningful citizenry across the world.
I thank you, Doctor, for this first interview. Ndoza nja kusaba. Anytime you are available for me to have these questions to you, you'll be able to get the inspiration, get this talk to our viewership. Nkwebaza nnyo akaseera k'omaze ku video eno ng'olabira Dr. Kavira Ponsian, especially yagadde nnyo kapaati kali ng'ava mu kyalo genda okusoma ate neyagadde nnyo ne energy yakozesa okufuuka doctor at 30 years. Njagala okutegeezaako gwalaba video it's worth hearing, gigabanye n'abalala ate era we'll be here the next time okubeera eno okukola production eno mbadde Kanka Capital nsiibudde mweraba.